Have you ever actually thought about the cost of cash bail? Do you think the prices are necessarily reasonable? Well, today we're going to discuss that. In my previous editorial from the New York Times, um, there was a quote that says, "People charged with crimes, all of whom are presumed innocent, get locked up for days, weeks, or months, not because they pose a risk of fleeing or endangering the public, but simply because they are too poor to buy their own freedom." This just shows the point that not all crimes are worthy of the high bail price that they are given. In this speech, I'm going to review the negative aspects and positive aspects and discuss the different viewpoints on why cash bail is necessary in the process of being released from jail. Requiring bail is kind of a way to ensure that the defendant will show up to court, as well as hold them accountable for the crimes that they committed and just how to handle that in a real world kind of setting. So, although I do agree with the quote that I was giving you guys, there are always points to be made on the other side of the argument. So, um, in the editorial, their argument is made that cash bail is given only so the defendant will show up to court. To refute this, to resolve the crisis, there needs to be a system that holds someone accountable. With a system to do this, without a system to do this, criminals would get away with really, really terrible things. There would be lots of loopholes. There would be just ways to get away with really unjust crimes. There needs to be a way to hold people accountable. So in the state of Wisconsin, it says, quote, "Cash bail may be imposed only upon finding by the court that there is a reasonable basis to believe that cash bail is necessary to assure the appearance of the defendant in court." That just kind of shows, again, like how the process kind of works, but that just proves the point of that it needs to be the way that it is for the fact that the people do need to be held accountable, whether they committed a small crime or a really horrendous crime. A crime is still a crime at the end of the day. But I do, again, agree with the quote. So while it is still pricey, a lot of people believe that removing cash bail as a whole from our jailing system would benefit a lot. So that makes my second main point, that the author just kind of like speculates how it's overpriced and discusses the topic of removing the bail. They discuss how it's very controversial within legislation and stuff. But for example, a lot of people that do believe in the reform say this, quote, "Reformers say that they hope that all this activity, the lawsuits, the law changes, ballot questions, and other initiatives will create enough force to turn public opinion and the opinion of judges against one of the American criminal justice oldest and most embedded practices." This just goes along with saying that changing it is something that will be kind of like a progressive movement. It won't probably all happen at once. It'll be one place after another, and just kind of hopefully make reform by starting somewhere. And that's what these people believe. The author discusses it. It's not really talked about in the article that I originally had. It was kind of, they just really focused on why cash bail is overpriced. So this is kind of refuting it in a way that says we should just get rid of it altogether. I think that getting rid of it is just kind of a iffy thing. I feel like it could leave a lot of loopholes and leeway for people who've committed really terrible crimes to get out of those crimes. So that's why I kind of think it's better just to keep it like more structured in a sense. So, but in correlation to the last quote that I gave and my last point and everything, that will lead me into my third point, which is that some states have actually taken the matter of the cash bail issue into their own hands. So, in this other article, it states that, quote, the judges I witnessed were not abusive of the bail system. Bail was barely administered. So in the state of New York, they've kind of worked on getting rid of bail, but like lessening the price, so bail reform. In this area of Brooklyn, the borough of Brooklyn, bail actually can't exceed the price of $2,000. They have a cap on that. So that just shows like maybe that could spark a change for like the entire country. But this relates to the main claim because of the concerns with the pricing of bail and just how the state of New York like handled that. So I've discussed kind of a few topics from Cash Bail's Lonely Defender, which was my main editorial that I was discussing, and I kind of discussed why some of the points were valid and why some were not. So to review, we just talked about like the idea of moving bail altogether and what that would do for us as a country, but also like why making bail cheaper is kind of something that could be looked into, and then also just like how the state of New York actually took that into their own hands and did that. So to conclude, reform is something that is much needed in the bail system, whether it means to remove it as a whole or just kind of work on um, controlling the prices. I think that it is evident that our country does need some change within this. I hope this has given you kind of a new outlook and a new way of thinking on the less discussed topic in our country, but it is very important in our society. So, thank you for your time.